What up? So, of course, I'm gonna be taking a look at the battle stations Pacific ship details thing with details about every single ship in the game that is non DLC, I believe, but also DLC, I believe. I think it might be DLC or non DLC because it's Mustang pack, but of course it should. But let's get right to it. So we're going to start off with the American side. We're going to start off with the US Navy, and we're going to start in the fighters section. In the F-2A Buffalo, as you can see, its armor isn't all too great, but it's quite fast. It's quite maneuverable, it's quite fast, and has good guns, but overall not as great. It doesn't have any sort of torpedoes, rockets, but it does have bombs, but no depth charges. So I wouldn't put this thing against any sort of ship. I'd rather it'd be better if you just paid it against other fighters, as that would be good. Okay, next we have the P-40 Warhawk, recognizable by its shark face. As you can see, compared to the Buffalo, it's still the same armor, agility and speed, but it has more guns, although it still has the same bombs. So once again, I recommend that you use this on fighters, and not any kind of ship of any kind. Next, we have the Hawker Hurricane. Now, comparing to the they have just about the same stats as all the other aircraft we've seen as of late, which means same suggestion here, unless you were able to sufficiently put it in large enough numbers with your teammates. I won't recommend taking these things against battleships or any sort of heavy ship that's heavier than a destroyer or PT boat. Next, we have the Wildcat, which, ironically, as you can tell, has the exact same stats as the previous three aircraft. So I won't recommend these to go up against enemy ships that are bigger than a PT boat or a destroyer. Next, we have the P-38 Lightning. This one is a very good aircraft. As you can see, its armor is better than the others. It's got max speed, agility, and guns. And it has better bombs than them, but still no rockets or torpedoes. But this, I'd recommend going against fighters with this still, but you can also hit PT boats and possibly get a few hits on the destroyers. Next, we have the F4FU Corsair. As you can see, this one has rockets. And while I suggest it goes against PT boats and fighters still, it is also quite good against ships like destroyers and insufficient numbers heavy cruisers, but not battleships. Now we have the F6F Hellcat, essentially it's a better version of the Wildcat, with more armor. So I recommend, of course, it can take a beam, but I recommend that you still go up against fires. Next, we have the P-80 Shooting Star. This has, uniquely enough, 5 stars on speed, which makes it incredibly fast. So, of course, I personally recommend you use the P-40 in like a long-range fire role. But of course, it carries 0 torpedoes, 0 rockets, 0 bombs, and 0 depth charges. So, of course, the only thing this is effective against is fighters and bombers. So of course I won't pit it against like any sort of ships that are bigger than a PT boat. Okay, so now we're moving on to the SBD Dauntless, which of course it is a pretty good all-round fighter despite being obsolete in the start of the game, and in late game it's just as useful. It has good speed and it has quite good bombs, so of course in numbers this would make it incredibly effective against big ships like destroyers or cruisers. Of course, the upgraded version, the Hellcat, is just as much effective, but it has bigger bombs and can carry depth charges, unlike the SCB. So, of course, the Hellcat can also attack like submarines that are submerged. Next, we have the fiery swordfish. Despite being absolutely stupidly obsolete, is actually a quite amazingly good aircraft. Of course, when dive bombers and torpedo bombers with Devastator and TBF Avenger, the TBM-3 Avenger, which has an amazing rocket. It can also hunt submarines using these rockets. Of course, these are pretty OP and effective, incredibly powerful all torpedo bombers, and they can take on just about anything that's about up to a battleship that isn't like, a heavy armored battleship, but insufficient numbers as they can quickly take out an enemy ship as long as it doesn't maneuver out of the way of torpedoes. Next, we have level bombers, which I recommend you use to hit static targets. Of course, we have, for the US Navy, we have the B-25 Mitchell, the B-17 Flying Fortress, and the B-29 Super Fortress. All three of these aircrafts are incredibly good at bombing, but if you can, I would recommend selecting in either the B-17 or, if you have unlocked it, the B-29, because compared to the B-17, you can potentially use it as a fighter, but I wouldn't recommend it because because it is highly unmaneuverable. But if possible, use the B-29 if you have unlocked it on the attack on Iwo Jima mission. All you have to do is get a gold medal on the mission before the attack on Iwo Jima, I believe it is. You have to unlock. If you can unlock this, I recommend you do it. Next, we have destroyers with the Fletcher class, as a Clemson class, which has been slightly upgraded since Midway. The Allen M. Summer, which is an excellent anti-aircraft destroyer. It's essentially a destroyer version of the Atlanta class, which we'll be covering shortly. Of course, we also have the USS Fletcher class, which is, despite the fact it shares the exact same thing, one of these turrets is actually replaced with submarine charge, which makes it incredibly effective against subs. Of course, I will continue explaining these things short another time. That's it for now.